Italy is famous for cities that never sleep: Rome, Florence, Venice. But the real Italy, the slow Italy, lives far from the crowds. In the hills, in the mountains, in little stone villages where nothing much has changed in 100, sometimes 500 years. Places where you still hear church bells instead of traffic, where people still buy bread from the same family bakery, and where time doesn't rush, it drifts. These are the Italian villages where life kept its old rhythm and the modern world never fully pushed its way in. Number 10. Civita di Bagnoregio, Lazio. Civita di Bagnoregio doesn't just feel old, it feels suspended. The whole village sits on top of a crumbling hill, surrounded by deep valleys, reachable only by a long footbridge. No cars, no noise, just footsteps and wind. When you walk through the stone archway into town, it's like crossing from today into the 1500s. Narrow alleys, flowers spilling from windows, old stone houses warmed by the sun. You can hear conversations through open windows because there aren't many people here, fewer than a dozen live in Civita year-round. That's what makes it so still. Mornings are slow. A cat crossing the street is an event. The sound of the church bell carries across the whole ridge. Most visitors leave by evening, and after that, the town becomes completely quiet. Just the last light over the canyons and the smell of fireplaces starting up for dinner. Renting a small place nearby starts around €600 a month, though most people stay in the newer Bagnoregio part below. But if you lived here, really lived here, you'd wake up every day inside a postcard. Civita isn't convenient, it's timeless, and that's the point. Number 9, Montefiorale, Tuscany. Above Grave in Chianti, wrapped in vineyards and olive groves, sits Montefiorale, a tiny circular village made of warm stone and silence. It's one of the oldest villages in Tuscany, but it's never tried to become a tourist show. There's one main lane that winds around the village, a few little side passages, and houses that look exactly like they did centuries ago, just with better doors. You don't drive here for shopping or nightlife. You come because life here moves at walking speed. In the mornings, you can smell bread and wood smoke. In the afternoons, the hills around the village glow gold. A small apartment here or just below the hill can go for €700 to €900 a month, and you can live on €1,400 to €1,600 easily if you keep life simple. Local wine, local oil, local food. What makes Montefiorale feel stopped in time isn't just the stone, it's the routine. People talk to each other, neighbors sit outside. You hear birds and church bells, not engines. It's Tuscany before Instagram, the one people imagine but almost never find. Number 8, Santo Stefano di Cessaneo, Abruzzo. High in the mountains of Abruzzo, far from the noise of the coast, lies Santo Stefano di Cessaneo, a village that seems carved from stone and silence. The streets are narrow and uneven, the buildings made of pale limestone that glows gold under the afternoon sun. The air here smells of pine and cold wind. In winter, snow settles on the rooftops, muffling everything until the whole world feels still. Santo Stefano nearly disappeared in the last century. Many families left for work in the cities, leaving behind empty houses and crumbling walls. But instead of letting it die, locals and historians rebuilt it piece by piece, carefully restoring every door, every tile, every lamp to look as it did hundreds of years ago. Today, it feels frozen, but not abandoned. There are small inns, one grocery, and a few craft shops. People talk softly, like they're afraid to disturb the peace. You can rent a small stone apartment here for €500 to €650 a month, and a simple life costs around €1,400. There's not much to spend money on: food, warmth, and long walks through the hills. Nights are silent except for the wind brushing against the mountains. It's not isolation, it's sanctuary. Number 7. Doza, Emilia-Romagna. A few hours north, just outside Bologna, Doza looks like the kind of place you'd paint rather than live in. The whole village is covered in murals, hundreds of them. Scenes of daily life, portraits, abstract colors, all painted on the ancient stone walls. Every few years, artists from around the world arrive for the Biennale del Muro Dipinto, the Painted Wall Festival. When they leave, the village looks different again, but the rhythm of life stays the same. Behind all that color, Doza is pure history. Narrow cobbled streets, stone archways, the castle of Rocca Sforzesca standing guard above. You'll find one bakery, a few cafes, and some of the best wine in Emilia-Romagna, flowing from barrels in the small cellars. It's peaceful, but not sleepy, just balanced. The village wakes up late, eats slow, and never rushes. Renting a home here costs about 700 to 900 euros a month, and total living costs average around 1,600 euros. Everything you need, bread, cheese, wine, conversation, is within a short walk. You won't see big stores or bright lights, just warm walls, soft colors, and people who treat strangers like old friends. At sunset, the murals glow, catching the last gold of the sky. The streets are quiet except for footsteps and laughter from a few open doors. Doza proves that time doesn't have to stop to feel timeless. Sometimes, it just learns how to move beautifully slow. Number 6. Etrubles, Aosta Valley. In Italy's far north, where the mountains rise sharply toward the sky and the air tastes like snow, sits Etrubles, a village that has watched centuries come and go without ever changing its pace. It lies in the Aosta Valley, just a few kilometers from the Swiss border, surrounded by forests and high alpine peaks that seem to fold around it like arms. The houses are built of stone, their roofs heavy with slate, and small wooden balconies overflow with flowers every summer. Etrubles was once an important stop for travelers crossing the Alps, but today, it feels perfectly hidden, a place where life never needed to hurry. There's an old cobbled path that runs through the village, lined with art and poetry carved into the walls. The church bells mark the hours softly, and in winter, the only sound you hear is the snow falling onto roofs. A small apartment here rents for around 800 euros per month, and the total cost of living stays near 1,600 euros. You don't need much to live well, just good boots, warm clothes, and a love for silence. The people are kind, the air is crisp, and everything seems to move at half speed. Etrubles is the kind of place where time doesn't stop because it's stuck. It stops because it's content. Number 5, Coronaldo, Marche. Farther south, in the gentle hills of the Marche region, Coronaldo stands proudly behind its red brick walls, perfectly preserved from the Middle Ages. It's often called one of Italy's most beautiful villages, but it isn't beauty that defines it. It's grace. The walls are still complete, the streets still curve softly between ancient houses, and every step seems to echo the same rhythm that's been there for 500 years. The old gate opens into a maze of quiet alleys, courtyards, and stairs that seem to lead nowhere in particular. Every turn reveals a new view: a church tower, a stone fountain, or a terrace covered in flowers. People greet you with a nod or a gentle "buongiorno," then go back to their routines, hanging laundry, sweeping steps, tending small gardens. Rent here is modest, 600 to 800 euros per month, and total living costs average 1,400 to 1,600 euros, depending on the season. The local market is small but full of color. The cafes open slowly in the morning, and the evenings belong to laughter echoing through the narrow streets. Coronaldo isn't a place for change. It's a place for stillness, the kind that seeps into you until you realize the world doesn't always need to move forward. Sometimes it just needs to stay. Number 4, Venzone, Friuli Venezia Giulia. Tucked into the foothills of the Julian Alps, Venzone feels like a town built from memory. In 1976, an earthquake reduced it to rubble. centuries of history gone in a single night. But the people of Venzone refused to let time erase them. Piece by piece, they rebuilt their village exactly as it was, stone by stone, arch by arch, using the same materials and the same hands that had shaped it once before. Today, Venzone stands not just as one of Italy's most beautiful villages, but also as one of its strongest. Walking through its narrow streets, you can hear the hum of quiet life. Shopkeepers talking softly outside their doors, church bells echoing against the mountains, and children playing near the fountain in the square. The air smells of pine and clean stone. Every corner feels familiar, even if you've never been there before. A one-bedroom apartment rents for around 700 euros per month, and a simple lifestyle costs roughly 1,500 to 1,600 euros monthly. The locals live with calm certainty. There's no rush to modernize, no rush at all. In Venzone, time moves like the mountains, steady, patient, and unbroken. It's a village that reminds you the past isn't always lost. Sometimes it just waits to be rebuilt. Number 3. Pietrapertosa, Basilicata. In the deep south of Italy, where mountains replace skylines, Pietrapertosa feels like a secret world carved into the rock itself. The village clings to the cliffs of the Lucanian Dolomites, its houses built so high they seem to float above the valley. From a distance, it's hard to tell where stone ends and home begins. Clouds pass beneath your window, and the air carries the scent of wild herbs and rain. Life here hasn't changed much in centuries. The narrow stairways still twist through the village like veins, leading from one tiny square to another. In the mornings, the sound of church bells mixes with the crowing of roosters, and by noon, the smell of lunch drifts from every open window. Rent here starts around 500 euros per month, and you can live comfortably on about 1,400 euros monthly. There are no crowds, no shopping malls, no noise, just the whisper of the wind against the rock and the sound of conversations carried up the hills. In the evenings, the mountains turn pink with the sunset, and everything falls silent except for the crickets. Pietrapertosa is one of those rare places where the world feels untouched, where time didn't stop out of stubbornness. It simply never found a reason to leave. Number 2. Abruzzo, Liguria. In the hills of western Liguria, just a short drive from the French border, lies Abruzzo, a village that seems to hang in midair. Built on a steep slope above olive groves, its narrow stone alleys twist like ribbons, climbing up toward an old castle that has guarded the valley for centuries. From above, it looks like a painting, a tumble of terracotta roofs and winding lanes bathed in golden light. Down below, the river glimmers quietly, and the scent of rosemary and pine floats through the air. Abruzzo has fewer than 600 residents, but it feels alive in the gentlest way possible. Cats sleep in doorways, neighbors talk across balconies, and the piazza fills with chatter every evening as locals gather for a glass of wine. Life here is slow, deliberate, and deeply human. A one-bedroom apartment rents for around 650 to 800 euros per month, and you can live comfortably on 1,400 to 1,600 euros monthly. The village has just enough to keep life simple: a few cafes, 2 restaurants, a bakery, and a rhythm that never changes. At night, Abruzzo glows. The streetlights trace the outlines of the houses, and from a distance, the whole village looks like a constellation that settled on a hillside. It's quiet, but not lonely, the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own heartbeat. Abruzzo doesn't belong to time anymore. It belongs to peace. Number 1. Castelmezzano, Basilicata. Tucked high in the Lucanian Dolomites, Castelmezzano might be Italy's most dramatic village. Built directly into the cliffs, it looks almost impossible. Houses carved from stone, rooftops clinging to jagged peaks, narrow staircases vanishing into the mountain. From far away, It seems like a fairy tale frozen in stone. Up close, it's something even more rare, a place that still beats with the same heart it's had for centuries. The streets are narrow and steep, barely wide enough for one person. Every doorway tells a story. Every wall shows its age with pride. The people who live here don't just exist in time, they live beside it. They farm the same land their grandparents did, gather each evening in the square, and spend long hours talking about nothing at all. A small home rents for about 600 euros per month, and total living costs hover around 1,400 to 1,600 euros. Castelmezzano is quiet, but never still. The wind rushes through the mountain passes, carrying the echo of church bells and distant voices. When night falls, the cliffs glow orange under the last light of the sun, and for a moment, the world feels completely still. You can stand at the edge of the village and see the valley stretch endlessly below, silent, golden, eternal. It's the kind of view that makes you forget everything except how small and lucky you are to witness it. Italy is full of movement. The cities, the tourists, the trains rushing from one place to another. But between those currents are pockets of stillness, untouched and eternal. In these small villages, time never really stopped. It simply decided to stay a while. It lingers in the stone walls warmed by the sun, in the laughter that echoes through empty streets, and in the taste of bread baked the same way it has been for generations. These aren't places built for sightseeing. They're built for living, quietly, slowly, and deeply. In Civita di Bagnoregio, you hear the wind more than traffic. In Montefiorale, the vines grow the same way they did 500 years ago. In Apricali, conversations stretch through the evening like the sunset across the hills. Everywhere, the same rhythm beats softly, steady, patient, unchanging. It's the rhythm of a country that still remembers how to pause. The world outside these villages runs fast. Screens glow, deadlines press, cities grow louder every year. But here, the days move by light and shadow. Morning begins with a bell and ends with wine poured slowly at a table that's been there for centuries. These towns don't reject time. They redefine it. They teach you that life isn't about how much you can fit into a day, but how much of a day you can truly feel. For many, Italy is a dream of art, food, and romance. But for those who find their way into these forgotten corners, it becomes something else. A lesson in peace. A reminder that beauty doesn't need to be new, that joy doesn't need to be loud, and that sometimes the truest luxury is the absence of hurry. If you stand on a hill in Castelmezzano or walk the silent alleys of Santo Stefano, you can feel it, the weight of centuries resting lightly in the air. You can hear it in the church bells, see it in the way the sunlight touches the stone. It's not nostalgia, it's presence. Time didn't die here. It just learned how to breathe. So, if the world ever feels too fast, too bright, too loud, remember these villages. Remember the way the doors stay open, the way the streets hold silence, and the way the people live not for tomorrow, but for the evening light. Because somewhere in Italy, time is still waiting. And when you find it, it won't ask you to rush. It will simply ask you to stay.